Hi, welcome to Old Guys Gentlemen Flex Fountain Pens, episode number 36. And this one will be the Parker 51, and this is not a flex pen. This is probably the least flex pen that I own. So why am I including it in my collection? Because in the last month or so I've bought a bunch of different pens that are really not flex pens just to see how they behaved. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this review. The other thing is that I've always heard about how people love Parker 51s, and I've never had one, never tried one. There's whole websites devoted to the Parker 51. It's like a little cult of people who love the Parker 51. So hopefully they don't get too mad at me when I do this review. This is the pen right here. And it's just kind of a simple looking, kind of plain pen to me. I think some people might really like the simplicity, the elegant simplicity of it, but to me it's just kind of a plain old pen. It does have a really kind of unique nib. It's a hooded nib, little tiny nib in there. And it's pretty well supported, so it doesn't really move too much. So not a lot of line variation with this. In terms of, oh, that is a 14K nib, by the way, made probably early 50s. So the posted length of this thing is 6 1/8 inches. So it's a nice length for me. Unposted, it's 5 1/16 inch. That's still pretty good length for me. Capped, it's 5 7/8. It has this kind of unique clutch system that holds it on there pretty firmly. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't really mar the pen too much. So I do like that about it. This does not feel like it's going to come off at all. It's a nice firm grip. It was listed as a fine, which kind of surprised me a little bit because it actually writes somewhere between extra fine, double extra fine, and extra fine. And if you press a little bit, you get extra fine, maybe on the edge of fine. But pretty much, as you can see here, there's a little bit of line variation, but I would never even try to be doing it on this kind of nib because it's just kind of silly. There's like no response compared, or maybe it's the response is so quick it doesn't show up. I don't know. It is very smooth. This particular ink is Waterman Intense Black. Okay, let me show you the fill mechanism. It's basically a sack with a squeeze bar around it with little instructions right here of how you're supposed to squeeze it 4 times to fill. So I think I've covered what I kind of like about it. Is it's got a nice fine line. I like fine. It's a good size. It's not that much of a looker, but it's kind of a classy look to it. What I don't like about it is that maybe it's just this particular pen, but I found the nib to be really dry. And it theoretically came to me as being fully flushed and clean. Or maybe I had left some ink in there too long, I don't know. But I first tried it, actually this is actually my 3rd review. But I haven't posted the other 2 because I wanted to work with it a little bit. The first ink I put in there was this diamine oxblood, and I had read that diamine inks were good for it. But let me see if I've got that here. Yeah. So when I did that, I got these super fine lines. You could barely see it, and I had to work at it a little bit to get to that. There was a lot of kind of skipping. So what I did since then is I flushed the pen out. I had done that before with water, but this time I used some fountain pen flush, and then cleaned all that out. And then I used this Waterman ink. They say that more the pen makers inks tend to work best, so I tried that. and I finally got a line. But it's also, not only is it a little bit dry, it takes a little bit to get it going. Once it's going, there's no problem. But none of my other pens do this. And again, maybe it's something about this specific pen, or maybe something's still clogged, I don't know. The other interesting thing, I'm doing this on Clairefontaine paper, which is kind of a very smooth, kind of hard paper. Not a lot of ink gets soaked in it, it dries on the paper. I tried it on just some regular printer paper. And what's interesting is there's a small amount of feathering, but not much, like if I would have used one of my flex pens on there. But you can see all the lines are quite a bit bolder because it absorbs some of the ink. So this is closer to the fine that it touts. And so maybe they were doing that based on the paper they were using, and probably not a lot of people are using Clairefontaine paper. I don't know. But this is my favorite paper. This is a little bit of a pain in the ass to kind of get it going. It stays good for a while, but I think what happens is it dries, and then you have to get stuff going. Okay, how about a little writing sample? So it is nice and smooth, but as you saw here, it skipped a little bit in the beginning, and then once it got going, it worked fine. With this particular ink, with the amount of flushing I've done, I shouldn't have any of that sort of skipping. The other thing that I forgot my little E there. The other thing I forgot to mention, it seems very sensitive to the rotation of the pen. So for instance, if I pull it off like 15 degrees, get a little bit there. A little bit more. All right, now it's proving me a liar. But I'm going to keep rotating it more towards the plane that it should be in. And then, and this degree difference seems to be less, that range of angle differences, than on my other pens. And I think that's just because of the design of the pen. The other problem is there's really no visual clues with this. When I write with something like this, it's very clear when I have this nib like parallel to the paper. Nice, huh? Yeah, that has nothing to do with this one. This happens to be a Pilot Heritage FA nib that was modified by John Mottishaw for Spencerian. So anyhow, you get to this, and you know, even if I magnify this a little bit, you know, when do you have your nibs in correct position in relationship to the paper? I mean, I can tell if that's wrong, but anywhere in here, it's really difficult for me to see that. My final thoughts on this are, I don't get it. You know, maybe I just don't have a good nib. Maybe I should try another one. But right off the bat, It looks nice, it's simplistic, which is nice in a way, but it just doesn't do that much for me. There are some little features about it that I do like, but there's a lot more features that I don't like. And again, maybe it's just this particular pen. Although you're always going to have this problem of identifying the position of the nib when you're writing. So, hope you have got some value out of that. Hopefully I didn't upset Parker 51 lovers that much. And until next time, thank you for watching.